Good evening and welcome to the Town of Isla Planning Board for Wednesday, April 10, 2024. Just as a matter of housekeeping, if the matter says public hearing on it, it's open for public comment. You can fill out a yellow card on the side and speak. If it says decision item or recommendation item, the public hearing has already been had. But you're welcome to stay, obviously, and participate. I'll ask everybody to please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic Thank you. First item on the agenda, Town Board application recommendation item, Barton Management LLC, CZ 2022-033, east side of Blydenburg Road, approximately 233 feet north of Milmay Avenue, Hauppauge, 471 Blydenburg Road. Applicant requests a change of zone from residence AAA to industrial 1 in order to construct a warehouse. Applicant further requests a planning board special permit for outdoor overnight parking of registered vehicles as necessary as an accessory use for permitted principal use pursuant to 68-340.1C. Site plan modifications are requested as part of this application. Good evening. Is the applicant here and do they wish to be heard?
Good evening, Chairman Friedland, members of the board. My name is Mark Cuthbertson. I'm at 434 New York Avenue, Huntington, New York. And I was recently retained to represent Barton Management. As you know, this is change of zone application, special permit application as well, for property located at 471 Blydenburg Road in Hauppauge, and seeks a change of zone from residence AAA to industrial 1 in order to construct a warehouse and a sports facility.
I'm just going to stop you right there. The application that's been filed, that's before the town board, before the town planning board, is to construct a warehouse.
Yes. Okay.
So
and I'll address
we're not going to entertain anything that's outside of that application, just so you know.
Okay.
And if I can ask everyone, just so we can keep a record, she has to keep a record. Thank you.
My client sent a letter to the planning board yesterday seeking an adjournment of this matter, and really seeking that for two principal reasons. First, that I was recently retained so that they could consult with me and discuss the application, and also because they have submitted an amended site plan with an amended use for a sports facility. Specifically, at the February 6, 2024 meeting, the planning board, as you know, reserved decision, and there were further revisions that my client came up with the plan. The revised plan that they submitted a couple weeks ago on April 1st is based on comments received at the public hearing on March 1st and subsequent community engagement. And that plan, as I indicated, was submitted to the planning department on April 1st, 2024. And they are asking for an adjournment to be able to further discuss a community amenity, a community benefit that they have now included in the plan, which would be a 17,000 square foot sports complex that would be something that they would be willing to turn over to a community not-for-profit organization, and would be what they estimate to be a $5 million community benefit that would be generated in connection with
I'm just going to stop you there. I mean, you might have filed a new site plan. Before us this evening is a warehouse. There's been no new application filed. There's been no request for a new public hearing. There's been nothing else filed. You said yourself it was 2 weeks ago. What's before us this evening, we've already had a public hearing on, which is the warehouse at 122,000 square feet. We've had a meeting after that, which your client has spoke, as well as their counsel. There was supposed to be a meeting a month ago. The meeting was canceled. We're here this evening to discuss the 122,000 square foot warehouse.
Understood, Mr. Chairman, but they would like the ability to submit an amended plan and have the board consider that amended plan in lieu of going forward with a decision on a plan that they don't intend to pursue. And that's the purpose of me being here. They have sought support in the community. They delivered to the town.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I can ask you, we've received letters from everyone. We've read them all, so we know where everybody stands. Thank you.
They delivered approximately 450 letters of community support for this concept of.
Mr. President, I'm going to stop you once again. Most of the letters that I've received, and I've read every single one from the community and from your side as well. Can I ask everyone to please, she has to keep a record, she has a tough job, and it's hard for her to do when you're clapping. We've read those letters. If it talks about a sports complex or whatever you want to call it, the sports lab or whatever the name of it is, that's not before us. That's not for us to consider. That's not where we're at. You had every opportunity in the last several weeks when you decided this and you put the information up and you went to the community, however you did it, to amend your application, to withdraw your application and refile an application, to come here this evening or send a letter in the evening before, the day before, and say, we want an opportunity to do this, is not how we're going to operate. So what I'm going to ask you is, if you'd like to speak on the 122,000 square foot warehouse, you may do so. If you'd like to withdraw your application, you may do so. But we're not here this evening to talk about an amendment to the application. We're not here this evening to talk about adjourning it to give you another opportunity to come back. You've had your opportunity at a public hearing on this application, and you've had your opportunity to come back again last meeting, 2 meetings ago, so the last one was canceled, to discuss it. So we're not going to start this the evening before, the day before, or the night of. So again, if you'd like to speak on the 122,000 square warehouse, which is your application before this board, we're happy to hear from you this evening.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I am seeking the ability to just adjourn this and submit an amended site plan. I recognize there is a lot of community opposition here. I came into Town Hall where there were signs planted on the front steps of Town Hall. I've never seen that before, that there are signs planted there in opposition to an application. And all we're seeking is the chance to put, my client seeking the chance to put their best foot forward to talk about an amended plan. I think amendments to plans happen all the time in the land use realm, and that's what they're seeking today. They did not, and they just received notice that this was going to be on from their former attorney 2 days ago.
Yes. I'm going to stop you again. I don't know who put signs outside. If they're on public property, they should be removed. I'm not going to get into that game. Again, they asked for it to come back when we had the meeting 2 months back, to come back at the very next meeting. We put them on that agenda at the very next meeting. That was adjourned, so they go on the next meeting. So the fact that it's shocking to someone that they just found out 2 days ago, this has been known for 2 months that they would be on the very next meeting. That was a request if you go through the minutes of your client. So again, you have the opportunity, if you're not satisfied, you can't just file another site plan. There's a need for another public hearing. There's an amended application. It's not that simple. You're changing the use, you're adding more square footage, or you'd need a new parking calculations, new traffic study. You'd have to go through everything again. We have before us, if you're not satisfied with that application, you don't want to move forward on that application, you should withdraw that application. Otherwise, we're prepared to act this evening. We've given you your opportunity for a public hearing. We've heard from the community. We've heard from you again on the night we were going to make a decision, and extended it again to give you a further opportunity to provide more information. And now you're here again. You submitted a letter yesterday, and you're here again this evening to ask for yet another extension. And this time you're asking for it to change the plan altogether. So we're going to act on the application that's before us. If you'd like to speak on that application, we're willing to hear you on that application. If you'd like to withdraw that application, you have every right to do so. But those are the two options.
No, listen, the client would like the opportunity to talk about an amended plan, understanding that whatever environmental review processes that have to be modified, but to start back at square one when there is just one change to the plan itself and some parking calculation differences is, to me,
it's a significant change.
It's respectfully very similar in terms of the square footage.
It's not similar. You're adding something else that's completely different use. You're asking for a planning board special permit. You're adding children and kids and others that are going into the same parking lot as a warehouse, but we're not going to get into that because that's not before us this evening. And again, all I've seen was something that was emailed a couple of weeks ago. There's been nothing formally sent to me as chairman of the board with the changes that are proposed up until this evening. The first I'm hearing about it officially is from you. They're out there in the community for a while. I mean, you've had that website up and running. You've had letters coming in of support. So obviously you had time to reach out to the community. You didn't do the same for this board, with all due respect.
My understanding, however, Mr. Chairman, is that there was an amended site plan that was submitted on April 1st.
There was an emailed site plan that was sent in.
Right. So listen,
So you've not amended your application.
we're happy to submit an amended application. But there was, whatever the timetable is, those days ago, an amended site plan was submitted. So I understand that this is 11th hour, but it's not as if the intention to submit an amended plan was not there and the town was not made aware of it.
Your arguments have been heard. They're duly noted on the record. There is a record of this evening's meeting. There will be no adjournment of this application this evening. If you'd like to speak on the 122,000 square foot warehouse, which is the application before this board, you're welcome to do so now.
No, I think what has been said on that has been said already, and I'm not sure that the client plans to pursue it.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Colgan for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This application was previously heard at the February 6th hearing. In order to review the neighbors' letters, garner local support for the 122,000 square foot warehouse, a review of the impacted vegetation and its impact on neighboring properties, a reduction in the size of the building, the environmental evidence that the landfill poses a risk to residential uses, and written documentation as to the viability of a more restrictive transitional zoning district. To date, the staff has received emails, letters, and a petition against the project from the vast majority of residents on or living off Blydenburg Road. The applicant has not provided an updated vegetation analysis, the environmental information regarding the landfill, nor the analysis as to why a more restrictive zone is not feasible for the subject property. The applicant did submit a site plan with a slightly smaller building, reduced by approximately 6,000 square feet from the 122,500 square foot building that the board was presented back in February. That plan shows increased buffers to the south and southeast. The applicant has since solicited support from the greater Hauppauge community for an alternative proposal, which has not been formally applied for. The town did not direct the applicant to pursue this alternative. The alternative increases the size of the building and also reduces the size of the vegetative buffers, counter to the board's directives to the applicant. Given the divergence of the applicant's proposal from the board's request, there isn't anything further that the staff can suggest to mitigate the impacts of the proposed industrial zoning adjacent to the residential uses. As the applicant has not offered a viable proposal in response to the board's feedback, it is the staff's opinion that the board should deny the application.
Thank you. Can I ask everyone to please? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Colgan, for your report. Are there any questions from the board, either from Mr. Colgan or if the applicant would like to answer any of your questions? Not hearing any. Is there a motion? Mr. Wilson.
Mr. Chairman, based on the staff report and community input, I make a motion to deny this application.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I would second that.
Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? I'd just like to state on the record that this is industrial zoning. It's a classification that's not compatible with the surrounding single-family dwellings in the residential zone. We've denied similar applications in the past up against residential zones. This would be consistent with other decisions we've made here in the town of Islip on the planning board. The proposed 122,000 square foot building is not compatible with the nature and character of the neighborhood, predominantly single-family homes. Proposed overnight parking is not a conditionally permitted use in the existing zone. So for those reasons, I will be supporting Mr. Wilson and Mr. Moriarty on their motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The application is denied. I'm gonna ask for a 2-minute recess so those who are not here for the next few can get out, and then we can start with those. Thank you.
If you could all exit.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Guys, I also need you to not just leave the room, just go outside the building. Unfortunately, sound travels up the stairs.
Yeah, I landed. Yeah. Yeah, that building's down. Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, about a week ago, they started saying not tomorrow. Right? Yeah.
They started putting up like a 10-story tower on it.
Yeah, not that I've seen. The foundation might be there. Anyways, that's 10 stories.
It's the kind of
Is that in Islandia? Yeah, exactly.
I just had to open it. I wanted to see it. I keep standing up. I tore my hamstring
Oh, you did?
just to sit.
Were you running something? Is it
No,
just
I wish I had something
not
athletic
good
to tell you.
excuse?
No, it was actually Super Bowl Sunday. I was playing
Wait a
football.
minute. Exactly.
No, I was
Could have been a
upstate.
Super Bowl party.
It was icy. And I
Oh,
was
yeah.
hoping something I couldn't drop. And my leg
I
just
know.
slid to the point where it popped like a gunshot. This was the strangest thing. I think
That
the
is
therapy makes it worse. Oh, this is still on, by the way.
Okay, we're going to go back on the record for the second item on the agenda, Planning Board application, public hearing, Anthony Pizzy, PB 2024-005, northeast corner of Montauk Highway, State Route 27A and Saxon Avenue, Bay Shore, 611 Montauk Highway. Applicant requests a planning board special permit for a minor restaurant in the Business 1 District pursuant to 68-272.1A. Site plan modifications are also requested as part of this application. Good evening, Mr. Guardino.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anthony Guardino, partner with the law firm of Farrell Fritz and Hopog, representing the applicant, Anthony Pizzy. I am here tonight. I know this application has been heard before. I am pinch hitting for Doug Hines, my colleague, who is hopefully on a beach somewhere on vacation. And he was not able to make it and did not want to miss this meeting. So he asked me to kind of jump in. I don't know a heck of a lot about the application, but I can tell you that he has been working with Kelly and the planning staff to work through the conditions for both the site plan modifications and the special permit. And I do have copies of the signed conditions. The conditions are all acceptable to the applicant. So if I can hand these up, or Kelly, do you have these already? You do, right? Oh, that's what I have. I'm just going to send the original. Yeah. So I don't have anything further, and I hope the board goes easy on me and not ask me any questions.
We'll find out shortly, Mr. Guardino. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to ask Ms. Wozniak to give us a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The property is located on the northeast corner of Montauk Highway and Saxon Avenue in Bay Shore, and it's improved with the one-story commercial building with a mix of uses. Tonight, the applicant is proposing to convert unit 617A, into a Wingstop with 8 seats. The restaurant will be approximately 1,300 square feet and located next to the laundromat. This change will increase the parking approximately 4 stalls from the previous use, which was CO as a deli, and therefore a parking relaxation is also required. Overall, the site is generally in good condition and there are no open violations or complaints on the property. So based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions, which are similar to other special permit conditions for the other restaurants in that same center.
Thank you, Ms. Wozniak. Any questions from Mr. Guardino, Ms. Wozniak? Not seeing any. Is there a motion?
Mr.
Brown.
Chairman, yes, I'd like to make a motion based on Ms. Wozniak's report to grant the application.
Motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you. Item 3 on the agenda, Planning Board application, public hearing. Violia ES Technical Solutions LLC, PB 2024-007, south side of Spence Street, approximately 521 feet west of 5th Avenue, County Route 13, Bay Shore, 22 Spence Street. Applicant requests a modification of Planning Board conditions associated with TC 54151B to permit the overnight parking of vehicles on the western side of the building. Good evening to the applicant.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Anthony Guardino, law firm of Farrell Fritz, for the applicant, Violia ES Technical Solutions. We are before you tonight, Mr. Chairman. What I hope is a relatively modest request. You have heard this application a while back now, and there was a recommendation for a change of zone that then went to the town board. The town board approved the change of zone to allow my client that runs a kind of like it's a waste, a pickup of waste business, and they use trucks. The application was made to the town board. The town board approved it subject to covenants. Covenants were drafted, approved by the town attorney, and recorded. And it came to light that after they were recorded, that notwithstanding the fact that the original site plan showed truck parking spaces on both sides. There was no label that there would be trucks there. They were just deep 30-foot, long parking spaces, which are box truck spaces on the west side of the building. The covenants and the conditions were restricted truck parking to only the east side of the building behind a wing that was on the front of the building. My client needs to use the truck bays that are on both sides of the building that are already there. So we are respectfully requesting that the covenants be modified to allow truck storage on both sides of the building, subject, of course, to all of the other conditions and covenants.
Thank you. Does
Thank
anybody
you.
wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I won't rehash everything that Mr. Guardino pointed out. It's all correct and accurate. As the proposed location of those vehicles on the western side of the building, there appears to be ample space to install screening vegetation in the front yard, and it also meets the zoning setbacks required. So the staff has no objection to the request and would recommend that the board grant the application.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Guardino? Come on, somebody have something for him. He's getting off easy tonight. All right. Seeing no questions, their motion. Ms. Frugieri.
Make a motion that we close this public hearing and grant this application.
It's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to close the public hearing and grant the application. Is there a second? Mr. Moriarty, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, your application is granted. Thank you. Have a good evening. Item 4, Planning Board application, public hearing, BDG Sunvet LLC, Rebecca Wing, PB 2024-009, northeast corner of Sunrise Highway Service Road, State Route 27 and Broadway Avenue, Holbrook, 5801 Sunrise Highway. Applicant requests 6 Planning Board special permits for restaurants pursuant to 68-302.1H. Parking relaxation is requested as part of this application. Good evening, Mr. Kennedy. Good to see you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Pleasure to see you. Brian Kennedy for the applicant, partner with Fortelli Deegan Tarana. As the call of this meeting indicates, there are 6 special permits requested by the applicant. There is no change in the site plan that was before you folks back in November. As this project has moved forward, the applicant has moved toward leasing out the tenancies that exist in that building. We are here before you. Actually, I have one item to hand up to you folks.
We will take it and make it part of the record.
Sure. Thank you, Jim. Which indicates the 5 spaces in Building 3 that will house restaurants. These restaurants are typical of what you see in strip centers throughout Long Island, pizza place, Chinese food store, something of that nature. I can take this board through the history of this site. There was a change of zone. We were back before you in November if you would like me to.
I think we're all familiar with it. We're very happy with the direction the project's headed in. So whatever you want to add, feel free to do.
I have Chris Robinson and Chris Bisogno of R&M Engineering, if this board has any questions for them. The one thing I will point out is Sean and I went back and forth on the CNRs. There was one minor change. If those are acceptable to this board, they're acceptable to our client. And I'd ask that you guys look favorably on this application.
Great. So why don't we go to staff report? We'll go to any questions you might have. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to go to Mr. Colgan for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed restaurants are generally complementary for a shopping center of this size. The applicant submitted a parking study, which concluded that the land use of the shopping center remains unchanged, and a shopping center of this size generates synergy and shared parking among its various uses. Thus, no parking shortfalls are anticipated. Given the contribution the restaurants will make towards revitalizing this mall, staff would recommend that the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Kennedy or Ms. Colgan? I understand Ms. Colgan's told me he's okay with the condition that you went back and forth on, so we're okay with that as well. And we're looking forward to the completion of this project. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brown?
yes, based on Mr. Colgan's staff report and the attached conditions agreed upon, I make a motion to grant.
Motion by Mr. Brown to close the public hearing and grant the application subject to the covenants and restrictions. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Item 5, Planning Board Determination, Rochester hearing, Tom Farrell, SP 2022-059, north side of 3rd Avenue and Stein Drive intersection, Brentwood 0, 23, 25, and 29 3rd Avenue. The Planning Board is requested to hold a Rochester hearing to hear public testimony regarding the proposed expansion of an existing 2-story ambulance dispatch building and a special permit for a 100-foot tall radio antenna, site plan modifications, and an exemption of town of Islip zoning requirements for ambulance use are also requested as part of this application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Armentano. I'm an attorney with Farrell Fritz. I'm also here with representatives of the Brentwood Legion Fire Ambulance Corps and Mark Owen from R&M Engineering. We were previously before you on February 6th to conduct a Monroe hearing. Planning staff had required additional information regarding the antenna. We had supplied that information. We're here to answer any questions you may have. We had made our presentation previously as to requirements for a Monroe Rochester zoning determination.
Thank you. We'll go to Mr. Gonzalez for a staff report. If there are questions, we'll come back. Mr. Gonzalez, let's get you a microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This application had a public hearing on February 6th of this year. Decision was reserved to allow the applicant to provide further information and for staff to draft a resolution for the planning board this evening. The two outstanding items from the public hearing were technical and supporting documentation for the proposed location of the radio antenna behind the building and for the proposed 100 feet in height of that antenna. So subsequent to the public hearing, a technical report by RF Design Consultants, Inc. was submitted. As a brief summary, the antenna must be located within 10 feet of the rear of the building due to proximity of the dispatch room and the length of the cable feed to that antenna. The further away it is from the dispatch room, the weaker the signal strength, and the proposed height of 100 feet allows for a broader signal radius from this location per industry standard comm study radio propagation software, which studies radio coverage. So based on the above, staff has drafted a resolution with the town attorney's office, which finds the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the 9-factor test of a Monroe decision, and that resolution is before you all tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant or Mr. Gonzalez? Not seeing any. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Moriarty.
Yes, I'd make a, do we have to close the hearing or is that closed at this point?
It's closed.
Okay, so it's closed. No, so there's no reason for that. Okay, at that point, I would propose that or make a motion that we adopt the planning board resolution dated April 10, 2024, which has been circulated to this board.
Motion by Mr. Moriarty to grant the resolution that's before this board this evening. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Frugieri. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Item 6 on the agenda, site plan modification decision item. Simon Normand, SP 2023-038, north side of Newton Avenue, 426.17 feet east of Hoffman Avenue, 21 Newton Place, Hauppauge. Applicant requests permission to locate loading bays in the front yard facing the right-of-way in connection with an addition to an existing warehouse facility. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. James German, German and Clemens Architecture, 3275 Veterans Memorial Highway, Ronkonkoma, New York, 11779. I'll keep it short. My client bought the building. It backs on the back of the property, leads to the LIE. There's an existing industrial building there now that's office and warehouse. He's just looking to extend the building to make it a little bit bigger for his uses. The new overhead doors will still be in the back of the building facing the LIE. There's a 20-foot high vegetated hill between the building and the service road for the LIE.
Thank you. We'll come back if you have questions. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a summary, it's an industrial 1 zoned property, about a little over 3 acres. There's a 29,500 square foot warehouse originally CO'd in 1973. The almost 20,000 square foot expansion of the existing facility is also in conjunction with additional parking, landscaping, drainage, lighting, and other site improvements. All landscaping and parking requirements are met. The only relaxation is permission to locate loading bays facing a right-of-way. The loading bays will face the LIE behind the building, which is also heavily wooded and maintains a much higher elevation than the rear of this property where the trucks will be located. So any truck activity in this location should not have an effect on the area. There are also no residential properties near this location, and Newton Place is entirely industrial properties. Based on the above, staff recommends the board grant the application subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I agree, Hannah, but based on the location of the property, when I went back there, there's properties raised in the back, it's huge buffer zone, and there's absolutely no residential anywhere near this thing, so I think it's a good fit for the area.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Brown?
based on Mr. Gonzalez's staff report, I'm going to make a motion to grant the application.
Motion by Mr. Brown to grant the application, subject to the conditions. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Thank you. Item 7 on the agenda, Planning Board application decision item, Jesse Cariri, PB 2024-008, northeast corner of Carlton Avenue, County Route 17, and Gullhaven Drive, Central Islip, 250 Carlton Avenue. Applicant requests Planning Board's approval for signage in the PDDRS district pursuant to 68-324C3A. Is the applicant here? Not seeing the applicant. I'm going to go to Ms. Wozniak for a report.
Signs if you guys want to see them. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property came before the planning board last June to convert the existing church building into a medical office. And then again, last November to obtain a change of zone to PDD retail service in order to construct retail and restaurant buildings on the northern portion of the site as a part of a larger master plan for the former NYIT campus. Tonight, the applicant is looking to obtain planning board approval of the proposed signage for the medical office building. The applicant is proposing 2 front-lit channel letter facial signs, one on the northern elevation, one on the western elevation, both facing Carlton Avenue. The applicant is also proposing 2 non-illuminated plaques at the staff entrances, and then 1 non-illuminated plaque along the southern elevation. There's no ground sign proposed at this time. The signage is consistent in style with signage typically supported by the planning division and fits into the architectural features of the building. So based on this, planning recommends the board approve the signage as presented.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Wozniak? Not seeing any. Is there a motion? Ms. Frajari? Motion by Mr. Frajari to grant the application. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Wilson. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Moriarty, second by Mr. Brown. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, we're adjourned. Thank you.